So we're going to get started with Sara, the co-owner and founder of Alaska Ruff. Take it away, Sara.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Sara Buie. I own with my best friend Alaska Ruff dog treats. We manufacture them here in Wasilla, Alaska. We use barley spent grain from local breweries as our main ingredient for our treat. It's a nice, easy to access because there's an abundance of spent barley here that we use in Alaska with different breweries that we decided to use it as our own treat. Sorry, I might be a little nervous here. I won't go too much into the business side of things, but this is me and Kayla, my best friend, and our two pups. You don't see our kids because that would have been a very eventful day trying to get photos done. But we have been friends for about 7-8 years now. Our husbands work together, and we have always wanted to go into business together, just trying to find the right business avenue for us. And we love dogs. She's had multiple dogs over the years. I've had multiple dogs over the years, and we wanted to find something that we could put our heads together. And from both our backgrounds, we have very diverse backgrounds, to see what we can do. We started researching different industries and came upon the pet industry. We wanted to find a treat that we could do or make ourselves, and trying to research how to go about doing that, especially in Alaska. There are no pet food manufacturers here in Alaska, as far as I know. And at one point in our research of different things, we came upon spent barley. Some breweries in the lower 48 were doing different uses for it. It is a type of superfood. Once it goes through the heat process, the wort production in the brewing making process, it is lower in carbohydrates, it's gluten reduced, and it retains its potency and high in both fiber and protein. And so, this is great. How can we use this and use local breweries here and put it into a dog treat? So we started mixing around different recipes and eventually came up with what we have today. Let's see here. The benefits of higher protein, it can reduce appetite and hunger levels, increase muscle mass and strength, boost metabolism and increase fat burning, and help maintain weight loss. There is abundance of spent grain, not only in Alaska, but in all states, because in all states has different breweries, microbreweries, high-level breweries. It is a waste byproduct of the brewing process. And over the generations, it usually is used for animal feed, for fertilizer, and within the last decade or so, it's been more and more useful of breweries wanting to not waste the byproduct, but to give it away and to try and turn into something else that has a lot of benefits to it. Benefits: high fiber. Just a little research. We are forever researching the benefits of spent barley and the ingredients that we put into our treats, not only of the spent barley, but the Harvard School of Public Health states that fiber helps regulate the body's use of sugars, helping to keep hunger and blood sugar in check. In other words, increasing fiber consumption can be helpful to people trying to lose or maintain their current body weight. Fiber is associated with digestive health and reduced risk for heart disease, stroke, hypertension, certain gastrointestinal disorders, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. Composted spent grain can fertilize fields, gardens, and urban greenhouses. That has been done across the country, thus providing people with nutritious and natural foods. This is just some pictures of ours that we have used the spent barley for. We are currently primarily using spent barley from Glacier Brew House in Anchorage. And this is just some of the processes of us making it into our dog treats. And we have since moved out of our own home kitchens and into another Connex kitchen that we've retrofitted. This is just a quick list of the ingredients in our treats. We try and keep it as minimal as possible, and the main ingredient in our is the spent grain that we get from the breweries. I find it really fascinating that most breweries in the lower 48, a lot of breweries are trying to not waste the byproduct. One that I've known prior to this is Alaskan Brewing. They have many different systems that they use to try and delete their carbon footprint. They have their CO2 reclamation system to reduce CO2 gases into our atmosphere. And they use their spent grain steam boiler system to turn their spent grain into an energy source. So they don't have to ship their leftover spent grain to the lower 48. Their famous tagline is beer powered by beer. I thought that was wonderful. We are using it in a different aspect, of course, but it's just we are continually learning more about spent barley and the benefits of it, because it's very beneficial to humans, not only dogs and animals. So I think I ran through that a little fast, but we are always continuing to learn about spent barley and the different things that we could use it for. We do foresee possibly using it as a granola bar in the future, for not only for human owners, but continually using it for our pet food product that we have here in Alaska. And that is all for me, guys.
Thank you, Sarah. Up next, we don't have time for questions, even though you did end early. But there is a networking hub right after this shorts time. So in the UAS floor, that is where all the presenters will be able to meet you and answer your questions. So up next, we have Tyler, who is the co-founder of Protegra. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you very much. Okay, that was very interesting, Sarah. Thanks for that. I am going to share my screen as well here. Just make sure everyone can see that, and then we can start. Is that up and running?
Yep, you're all good.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is gonna maybe feel a bit like I'm kind of blitzing through this. It's kind of on purpose. I have a lot that I want to share. And the idea is that if this resonates with you, if this is interesting to you and the organization that you're part of, or your business, or whatever it is, I'm very happy to chat. I'll put my contact info up at the end. So my name is Tyler. I work at a company called Protegra. We're a local software company in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And I'll just put two kind of strike through comments here to kind of give a bit of a sense of maybe kind of the place that we're coming from. In the software world, there's a lot of talk around software is eating the world. And you may have heard this said by, there's a guy named Mark Andreessen. He founded Netscape, and now he's got a big venture capital firm in San Francisco. And he penned this thing a number of years ago called Software is Eating the World. And the orientation of those people tends to be, how can software people extract value from all sorts of different places and be the new, masters of society, if you will. And you're seeing this with Facebook and Google and all these tech companies that really aren't that good of companies. They're doing a lot of bad in the world. And so we have a different view of technology. We're a software company. We build all kinds of software for different kinds of companies. We think that software should be an enabling force, and it should help facilitate things and help add value as opposed to extract value. So there's a lot of common patterns that are used by tech companies. And one of them is around, you kind of build something that has network effect, which means, as more people join it, it gets more and more valuable, and it kind of becomes the de facto site. And that's why you see a lot of like winner take all things with internet-based businesses. And then those businesses try to put moats around that business that they have. And then they start charging higher and higher fees, and they extract all the value. And there's lots of examples of this where, I'll give just maybe a couple of examples. One is Facebook. You have your followers on Facebook as a business. You want to reach them. Facebook says, well, a certain percentage of them will actually receive this message. You have to pay Facebook to boost it in order to reach them. That's Facebook saying, we own your customers. You don't have a direct connection to them. And they slowly kind of take money from all of those little customer and business relationships. Same thing happens when you have the big business that, makes the marketplace, like Amazon, let's say, and they start going, oh, that's what people are buying. We're going to insert Amazon Basics. And instead of buying that USB cable from another company, you're going to buy it from Amazon. And so this just kind of happens over and over and over again in all these different industries. And we don't like that trend. We're more in favor of, hey, how can technology help play a facilitating role and help sort of showcase the individuality of things as opposed to commodify stuff. So I just think it might sound a little high in the sky, but really that's kind of our orientation with stuff. So we're trying to build good software. Now, a few years ago, we were interested in the problem space of local independent businesses and networks that try to support them. And I know you've heard from some of those organizations, such as, for example, Local First in Durango. I know they spoke. Kimber Landing from Local First Arizona spoke. So we're focused on those kinds of groups that are focused on local independent businesses. So what we did was we launched a program. We soft launched it at the start of 2016, actually, in Winnipeg. And the idea was we wanted to start small and kind of grow the platform over time based on feedback from the businesses that we were working with. So we're big believers in, I'll just use some jargon here, like jobs to be done, the customer development process, and business model canvas, which are three sort of tools that basically mean we don't have the idea for the app. We like to go talk to people who have the ideas, and then we kind of work with them to develop the right features, get them to kind of confirm that's what we want to build, and then we go and build it. So we started very small in Winnipeg with 8 businesses, very limited feature set. And then along the way, we would kind of generate pull by the businesses telling us, hey, we need this feature, we need this feature. And then we've kind of grown slowly over time in a measured way. And so in Winnipeg, we were growing it locally to the point where we had over 100 businesses. We had a lot of businesses reaching out to us to sign up. And then we realized it was probably time to kind of look at new communities and figure out how we could take this program to other jurisdictions. And we've built it in a way that it's a white label program. So we're really set up to partner with local organizations like JADC, like Local First, or any other of these kind of groups. So we've had some success in Winnipeg. Lots of transactions get processed through the program. It's a healthy program. That's a going concern for us. And now we're kind of ready to start expanding. So what is local frequency? Community-based loyalty, marketing, and payment program that is for coalitions of local businesses. So I know there's some talk about Starbucks. If you're at all familiar with the Starbucks app, our app kind of feels like that in that you load up money, you have a balance, and then you can use that to pay and get cashback rewards from businesses that are participating in the community. The difference is, instead of there being one app for all the Starbucks locations you go to, it's one app for, the idea is hundreds of local businesses in your community, or just many, depending on the size of the community, where you can earn these rewards. And then when you get local dollars back as a reward, they have to be spent within the network of local businesses. So it's kind of like a special little group that the local independent businesses can participate in. And in this program, businesses own their connections to customers, and they can use that to create offers and run different kinds of promotions and stuff like that. Also, because of the kind of shared nature of our program, like for example, when a customer is loading up, they might load up $100 once and then go spend it at multiple businesses. We have the advantage of being able to offer low payment processing rates to businesses, lower than they would have just on their own. The loyalty program itself is a relatively low cost, high value program, and it helps businesses with kind of attracting and retaining their customers. Their focus is really on local independent shoppers, the people who are going to the other local businesses within the community. So it's a way that these businesses can work together and also market to the people who care about businesses like them. So I'll just kind of quickly run through what the app looks like here. You go to a business, you see, oh, they accept local dollars, a sign that says that you can use your app there. It's QR code based, so people load up with their credit card. They have this QR code that they show at the business to pay. They can browse a list of participating businesses. This is a screenshot from Juno. We have room here for some local sponsorship, stuff like that, get everyone involved. You can look at the history page and view where you've been shopping and the rewards you're getting and that kind of stuff, how much money you've saved to date. There's also a function in here where you can choose a local nonprofit and round up your purchases. 100% of the proceeds get passed on to that nonprofit. So it's a great way to also support a local cause when you're supporting local businesses. And then when you're using it at different businesses, since they own that connection to you, unlike other things like Facebook and whatever that I mentioned before, there's no like nickel and diming, oh, we're going to charge the business some amount to contact their customers. The view we have is if if the customer has been to the business, now the business has a direct connection to that person, and they may offer them whatever it is that they want. So for example, it could be a loyalty reward. It could be saying something like, hey, we have a happy hour special on, for the next week. Come in between this and this time and get additional cash back. Or, you're halfway to your, 6 times visit reward or whatever it is. And all of this is easy to set up. And the businesses work with the local organization to do this. Merchants use this, an app, which is an Android app that they scan at the point of sale to accept payment. Pretty easy. That business gets different kinds of data insights, and not just data for the sake of data, but the example here is, this is a coffee shop in Winnipeg. They have you can see here on the legend, how many times has the customer been to the business? And then when was their last visit? And so you can see here, it's healthy this week and last week with a lot of the customers that were going there often. But then there's this other segment of people who haven't been back in 2 months. Some of them, these green ones here, have only been once. They might not be a good candidate to remarket to, but these people, like 29 people, had been there 20 plus times. Now they haven't been to the coffee shop in 2 months. Since the coffee shop owns that information, they would just set up with us an easy offer. It's just something like, hey, if a customer comes at least 10 times and then they don't come for 2 months, give them this offer. It says, hey, we haven't seen you in a while, blah, blah, blah. And so we're trying to make things easier for the local businesses. So that's where we're at today. I'll pause there. That's kind of where we're at today in terms of feature set. We're just starting to roll this out in new communities. We're doing it in Juneau. We're just starting also in Durango. The plan is to go to other communities in Canada and the US. We have I guess the moral of the story here is also that we're constantly adding to the program. And the vision for this is that if we can be in multiple places, it becomes easier for us to say, oh, let's add this one feature that might cost us a number of hours, but it's easier to justify if you can spread it out across multiple communities. So our goal is to kind of look at this like a shared service where we are helping we're the technology backend, but we're working with lots of different local organizations that are running their own program in their community. So this here is the merchant app. We just released something new, I think last week or the week before, where now it's easy for the merchant to just download on their own Android device. So this is easier for businesses that might be like farmers market style or whatever. And then there's also pay online functionality, which is easy for those who don't have storefront.
Thank you, Tyler. That is 10 minutes.
Okay.
If you have any questions afterwards, feel free to meet at the UAS floor of the networking hub. That's where all the presenters will be to answer your questions. Thank you, Tyler. All right, up next, we have Matthew, who is the owner of Alaska Artisan Meats. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you. Let me get my slideshow up here. All right, why is this? Well, slideshow, okay. All right, if everybody can see me and stuff, thanks for this opportunity. I'm Matthew Bates with Alaskan Artisan Meats. We are a startup company up here in Delta Junction, and we're here today to talk about food security in Alaska, food awareness, and how we can improve that. Our team consists of myself and my wife, Tangi. We own and operate Blue Creek Livestock, a cattle, pig, goat, and sheep ranch that's located here in Delta. And we also own and operate Alaska Natural Foods. That is our retail sales for our meat products. Our other team member is Monica Heller. She was born and raised here in Delta Junction. She's raised everything from horses to hay and grain. She's currently working on raising rabbits to provide for the Alaska market. Alaska is currently in a food crisis. I know the word crisis is run around a lot, but when we spend $2 billion a year on food for Alaskan citizens, that means we export $1.9 billion a year out of the Alaska economy. And that's food dollars that will never return to Alaska. We need to do better, and we can. Alaska is the largest landmass of any other state in the Union. We also have the most water. We have the most opportunity to feed our residents because we also have one of the lowest population rates. So one of the big questions in today's society is food sourcing. Where does your food come from? Do you know? Have you visited the farm where it was raised? Do they raise things in the same accordance that you like? Do you prefer organic methods, or do you like to have everything sprayed with chemicals? If you don't know your farmer, do you know how the food was raised? Do you know how your livestock was raised before it was turned into meat? Have you seen their operation? Have you had a chance to go out and pet the animals and see the love and the care that the farmers give your food before you have a chance to eat it? Most importantly, do you support Alaskan agriculture? Do you support Alaska grown food? Do you keep your Alaskan dollars in Alaska and support your neighbors rather than moving that food dollar outside of the state? Alaska needs farmers. We have the largest landmass and the most water. We need to increase our food production here in the state. Alaska is the last frontier of the United States. We are at the top of the world, and the view is fantastic. The opportunity that we have here in Alaska is endless. Who wouldn't want to be a farmer at the top of the world? Unfortunately, we are also at the end of the supply line. What happens if our supply line is interrupted? With less than 3 days of food stored in the state, according to the state of Alaska, we would be in a food emergency. A food emergency is not a place that we want to be. We can't afford to be that way. Alaska citizens need to eat every day. Alaska farmers can provide for Alaska citizens. From 2012 to 2017, according to the USDA, Alaska's farmers have grown by over 30%. That means Alaska farmers are going to grow accordingly to feed the demand of Alaska residents that want Alaska grown food. Cattle numbers in Alaska have grown by over 29% in the same time frame, and hogs by over 50%. Now, I'm a meat producer. My farm raises mostly beef, pork, chicken, lamb, goat, etc. So I don't know the numbers on vegetables, but I know that the vegetable farms have grown accordingly as well. Demand for farm to consumer sorry, I got distracted there. The demand for farm to consumer has never been greater. It is always great to know where your food comes from. Farm to consumer is a nationwide food trend, and it has never been more important than right now. We all know that COVID-19 has been a game changer for everyone. Nobody knows where their food supply line is going to be interrupted. Nobody knows if the grocery stores are going to be able to be opened. We need to make sure that we know that our food is secure in our pantries and in our freezers. Most importantly, we need to keep Alaska's money in Alaska instead of exporting our dollars. You may ask, what can I do? Well, don't worry, I have the answer for you. Buy Alaska grown food. Support your Alaskan farmer every day. Your Alaska supported farmer will support you so that if there is an interruption in the food supply line, we won't be affected. If Alaska feeds Alaska, we will be there and there won't be a food emergency. It'll just be another day. Buy direct from your farmer. Go to the farm. Visit the farm, see how they raise their food. See what you can do to help support your farmer. Tourism is a big thing in Alaska. So why don't we have all Alaska residents go on an in-state tour? Go to every different part of the state and see the different types of agriculture. Go to the vegetable farms in the Matsu Valley. Go to the grain producers in Delta Junction. See the livestock production. Go see your farms and your food. Most importantly, let's keep Alaska's money in Alaska. Alaska grown meat feeds Alaska's economy. By supporting Alaska grown meat, you will support several businesses along the way. You support the local retailer that sold you the meat. You support the Alaskan processor that transitioned the meat from a live animal to freezer ready packages. You also supported the livestock producer that raised the meat that you're going to eat. They support the hay farmers, the gray farmers, the fertilizer producers, all the local businesses that help to support them. They support the restaurants. They support the school businesses. We're asking for you to help us help Alaska. Alaska Artisan Meats is feeding Alaska's future. Thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the numbers below.
Thank you, Matthew. All right, again, go and meet the presenters at the networking hub in the spatial chat right after the end. But we still have one more presenter, Jim, the assistant research professor at the University of Alaska Southeast. Welcome, Jim.
Hi. Can you see my screen all right? Just checking.
Yep, can see
Okay.
it just good, thank you.
Great. Well, I'll get started. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the organizers of this conference, and I'd like to really thank them for being innovative themselves in taking this on as far as a online conference. So good to you, and good for you. Before I get started, I'd like to acknowledge that I live and I work on the ancestral lands of the Tlingit. I feel very fortunate to be in Juneau and to live here and lived here for many, many years. So what I'm going to talk about in the next 8 minutes or so is a project that just got started, and it's on measuring impacts of cruise ship tourism in the northern communities, and that's positive and negative impacts. And I've organized the presentation into describing the project first, some of the approaches we're taking, and then some very, very initial findings. We've organized the project by first finding people that we thought would really, really add to the whole project. So we're an interdisciplinary team. We come from 3 different universities across the country, and also some of those folks that are listed here have connections and have lived in northern communities that we're going to study as part of our study. We're going to study 5 different communities in the north and how cruise ships tourism is impacting the communities, and we're taking it from a community perspective. We have 3 folks from George Washington University. The leader of the project is Bob Ortung, and then also 2 folks from the George Washington School of Business, but also in their International Institute of Tourism Studies. So they've been working on tourism for many, many years in different parts of the world. So they're from George Washington University. We have 2 from University of Colorado, and then the other folks are from Fairbanks, and that's University of Alaska Fairbanks, 2 from there, myself from UAS, and then we have a graduate research assistant. And then we have a couple contractors, but one that we're leaning on quite a bit is Cecil Stewart from Nebraska, actually, but he's worked on sustainable communities for many, many years and has a model that we're using to organize the impacts. So getting right at it, what is the approach we're using and some of the description of the project itself? It's a 5-year study funded by the National Science Foundation, and we're investigating how the local communities are really adapting to cruise ship tourism, both in the time of COVID, which makes it very interesting. As you all know, pre-COVID, there was a increase in tourism all over the world from cruise ships. And then it went to almost zero last year and will be almost zero this year in 2021, we believe. And then post-COVID pandemic. So how are those communities adapting? And so as they're adapting, we think that it's very important to manage something. You really have to know what are the measurements. You cannot manage unless you have indicators or measurements. So that's our theory going into it. So that's what we're going to develop. And that is the focus of our study, is to develop indicators for the different impacts that are occurring, positive and negative. We're looking at 5 different communities, and these are all northern communities: Akureyri, Iceland; Jörgen, Norway; Juneau and Nome, Alaska; and Visby, Sweden. All of us have had experience or have lived in these communities. And so we're starting with some local knowledge. So we feel fortunate about that. That's why we picked some of those folks. So it's 5 communities, impacts, and we're developing indicators for those impacts. Our objectives are to develop the indicators using a model that came out of Cecil Stewart and Sharon Kuska's work on indicators in communities, which really goes to 5 different areas, not just the sustainability usual 3 of economic, social, environmental. We think that technology and public policy are equally important and on the same level of importance. If you're not maximizing technology in a community, and if you don't have the right regulatory and non-regulatory rules, then you're really not maximizing sustainability in a community. So we're looking at a 5 domain or 5 areas that we're using as a model. And we'd like to understand how communities are adapting through policies that they have, programs, initiatives, and government structures. So we're looking at the institutions, the government side, as well as the social side, and the non-regulatory and the social organizations that are happening. And then we'll report back to communities after we go through. It's a 5-year study, so we're just starting. So to give you a little idea, and this is a real initial beginning, and these are based on actually 3 events that happened in Juneau. In 2019, I was asked by some neighborhood association folks in Juneau to look at, let's have a meeting on the impacts of cruise ships, because there was a lot of concern about carrying capacity at that time, and just lots of tourists that are coming to town. Are we managing it well? That kind of thing. So we engaged a group, and on December 11th, 2019, and we got some information from that. In fact, I organized that, and we looked at that. So I pulled from that information. That was well attended. There were, I don't know, over 50 people at that meeting. And then we last week, we held our first focus group meetings. We had 2 focus group meetings in Juneau where we had industry, regulators, small business, and neighborhood association members attend those 2 meetings. And this is what we came up with. We asked them, and we also drew from the information from the 2019 meetings of the community. And we asked them, okay, what are your top 3 things that you feel are really important that should be measured? If we're going to manage this thing, cruise ship tourism, what are the things that we really need to keep track of? And this is what they came up with. For example, in the environmental, or you could say ecological area, air, water, fisheries, whales, that always came up. Social, cultural, the concern of carrying capacity, indigenous heritage, dislocation came up a lot. During the summer, some people say it's a saying that, oh, I don't go downtown during the summer. because it's too crowded, too many tourists. So there's this idea of dislocation, and maybe on our trails too. Economic, there's some positive and negatives to that, but how do we track that? How do we know that there's a lot of local businesses that are getting what their share, you might say? Is the city getting its share through taxation, and then small business opportunities and longevity of those meetings? And then public policy, regulatory, non-regulatory plans, and then technology, energy. I don't know if you know, but Juneau was the first place in the world to have a plug-in cruise ship. And that looks like we want to do more of that. Infrastructure, how is our infrastructure impacted? And then efficiency and access to technology. So these are the initial findings. And if you'd like to contact me, please do. Gunishtish, and there's my contact information. Thank you very much. And I'd like to say that I really enjoyed the other presentations. All of them were just excellent. Thanks.